The way our program works is we select high potential entrepreneurs who are really focused on creating social impact through their business. We then bring them to a retreat in Nicaragua for about a week. The retreat focuses on personal mastery, leadership, understanding the impact investing ecosystem, and really understanding the business model of the company. And the whole idea is to build community among entrepreneurs and set up entrepreneurs for a successful consulting engagement. For the next 5 months, entrepreneurs work with Agora consultants virtually. We have a 14-module program to sort of help the company really understand what they need in order to grow, and in particular, in order to attract investment. And then, towards the end of the program, we will connect entrepreneurs with investors, and we will put them in deal rooms where they're able to discuss their business and the strategic problem with investors, and in the hope that that will begin to build some trust and eventually lead to investment. So we work with early stage companies. Typically, they have not received any outside capital, although some of them have. The average revenue of companies that we work with is about $250,000, but there's a pretty big range between really $50,000 in sales, almost up to $2 million in sales. You know, every business is different, and businesses have different requirements, but most businesses really need to focus and understand what is their key driver of growth, and how are they going to raise the capital to propel that growth. And so a lot of what we do in our consulting is it's almost like a Socratic method. We're asking a lot of questions. The entrepreneur is beginning to tighten their business plan. They're beginning to get a better sense of how much money they need. And we have a lot of examples of how this methodology really results in a tighter business plan that can get investment. So in our consulting process, we have different modules, and one of them is about revenue. And one of the things that we ask entrepreneurs to do is to look at what their revenue is, what their revenue drivers are, and then do an analysis. And oftentimes entrepreneurs will discover that they're spending a huge amount of time on products that are not actually very profitable. And so helping the entrepreneur to get an outside perspective is really critical. And that's just one example. There's a lot of other examples where, as an entrepreneur, you often don't have the resources or the time to really work with somebody that can ask the tough questions and maybe even help you with research or help you connecting with a mentor. And the key to our program, and what I think differentiates our program from many others, is that we have a very strong consulting component. We have a consulting fellowship where we attract, I think, just phenomenal consultants who work for Agora for about 9 months. Each of these consultants has a portfolio of 4 to 5 companies, and they really roll up their sleeves to help the entrepreneur in any way possible. And you know, early stage business development, early stage companies, consulting to them is often messy. Things change, problems come up, you don't always have all the data, and so we try to find consultants that are really focused on helping the entrepreneur solve their problem, even if you know, not everything can be fit into nice, neat little boxes. You know, so measuring social impact is a huge question. It's very difficult, and sometimes I think we can focus too much on how measurable social impact is. But for us, the number one thing we look for is that there's real intentionality from the entrepreneur. Because an entrepreneur can have a great business plan that could create a lot of impact, but if they don't actually manage towards impact, if it's not something that they truly care about, if it's just an add-on to try to attract investment, they're not going to be managing for impact and they're not going to have as much impact. So we look for entrepreneurs who are very serious about building great businesses that can compete and that can grow, but that are equally serious about creating shared value for everyone. And we do help them to come up with metrics when applicable. We use the IRIS methodology and other industry standards to try to help our companies. All of our companies get gears rated, and that whole process actually helps them to think about their impact, often in new and different ways. A couple of observations. I think that what's really exciting is how so many countries, especially in Latin America, are just creating their own ecosystems, and they're doing it really on their own. There's a lot of government leadership that we're seeing, and there's a lot of leadership from groups like the Inter-American Development Bank, actually, that are really kind of on the forefront of trying to figure out how do we get more capital to early stage companies. I do think that we're not as far along as I thought we would be by this time. I think that the industry is only now realizing that it doesn't matter if you have billions of dollars that want to invest in impact-focused companies if you don't have the pipeline and if you don't have platforms that can efficiently connect entrepreneurs with investors. I think that is one of the huge challenges that the whole sector is facing, and I think it's going to require a collective effort to come up with these platforms that drive down the cost, both in time and money, of investing, while also providing a deeper, richer, and higher potential pipeline of entrepreneurs. There's a couple of big trends. I think number one, people are recognizing the importance of entrepreneurship, not just in technology, but social entrepreneurship and the ability of entrepreneurs to, as Peter Thiel said, go from 0 to 1, to create something really powerful and important where nothing existed before. And when you're able to help that kind of entrepreneur to grow, the impact is really exponential. And so we need to be finding more and more of those kinds of investment opportunities. I think the market is recognizing that, and recognizing as well that not every ecosystem is like Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv. And so we need to be investing in the ecosystem. And we're beginning, I believe, to become a bit more sophisticated about what that means. What does an ecosystem mean? How do you strengthen it? Who are the actors? How are they working together? Is there trust in that ecosystem? Is there clean communication in that ecosystem? And I think a major trend in the future will be more of a focus on system thinking and on leadership that is focused on actually creating system change, as opposed to just everybody kind of fighting their own individual battles. We need to be joining in this battle if we're going to be successful. And I think more and more we're going to see greater levels of sophistication around how do you create impact, what does that mean? And I think it's going to come from the entrepreneurs themselves. It's going to come from the ground and not so much from external metrics, although those are important for investors. But I think the real key is going to be when entrepreneurs really take that seriously and embed that in the DNA of their company. And that to me is really exciting.